Greetings adventurers, this is Cause of the Warforged here with the best Polearm Master build. Now, for those of you who don't know, as of patch 8 hotfix number 30, the Polearm Master feat has been fixed. Now, previously, this feat allowed you to make opportunity attacks when enemies entered your range as long as you're using polearm weapons, which are quarterstaves, spears, pikes, halberds, and glaives. You also get a bonus action attack that's going to deal extra damage from you attacking from the butt end of your weapon, but that was bugged where it only did the base damage. It didn't add on any damage riders, and it was absolutely terrible. This feat was useless. However, as of hotfix number 30, that polearm clout bonus action attack has been fixed. You can use improved divine smite on it. You can use elemental weapon, great weapon master. It's really good, and hopefully people are going to be seeing and trying out pole arms more often with the Polearm Master feat. Alright, so because the build is very feat heavy, we are going with a Hexadin. We're going to be mainly dependent on our charisma score. We're taking a first level in Hexblade Warlock. That way our weapon scales off of charisma. We get access to the Hexblade's curse, which is going to give us bonus damage on hit, increased crit range, and we're going to get healing whenever we kill our enemies. Now, of course, because we have high charisma, once we go our 11 levels of Oath of Vengeance Paladin, we are going to be benefiting a lot from our Aura of Protection for good saving throws. We are going to get Relentless Avenger, which is going to give us bonus movement speed whenever we do opportunity attacks, which we will do frequently. And we're going to get Improved Divine Smite at level 11. That is going to give us a bonus 1d8 radiant damage on all of our attacks, including our reaction and our bonus action attacks that we're going to be making quite frequently. But with this build, we're going to have good survivability, good damage, and on top of that, we're going to have incredible battlefield control options, applying on-hit effects from our reaction off of our turn, using some pretty nifty items that we're going to talk about that are essential for the build and make it so much fun to play. The main synergy of this combo and when the build comes online is in Act 2 when you acquire two particular items, the DRAKETHROAT Glaive and the SNOWBURST Ring. Now with the DRAKETHROAT Glaive, we're going to be able to cast Elemental Weapon and create bonus code damage on any polearm of our choice, and then with the SNOWBURST Ring, whenever we deal code damage, we are creating little circles of ice to trip our targets and knock them prone. This is going to allow the Hexadin Polearm Master to have battlefield control over your enemies. You're going to be constantly knocking people down on your turn and off of your turn with the opportunity attack from the Polearm Master. But once they're down on the ground, they're an easy target for you to finish them off. All right, so we are now going to jump into the meat of the build. We're going to cover the level progression followed by itemization for the build, including of course how to get the two most important items, the DRAKETHROAT Glaive, the SNOWBURST Ring, and then we're going to talk about gameplay, how to use this build and how it functions and what makes it so strong compared to previous iterations of the Polearm Master or previous other types of martial builds. There is a lot of utility and battlefield control that you get once we have access to the SNOWBURST Ring that the Polearm Master is specifically able to utilize. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Let's just jump straight over to level progression. Now our character, I will preface, this build doesn't really come online and really maintain and gain its identity until Act 2 when you get access to the Last Light Inn and you can get the SNOWBURST Ring. So early on, we're taking 5 levels of Warlock, and then as soon as we hit level 6, that's when we respec to Paladin and only have a dip in Warlock so that we then will have access to a lot more powerful abilities that will synergize better with the Polearm Master than just going straight Hexblade Warlock. But straight Hexblade Warlock is honestly perfectly fine too if you want to do that. Maybe we'll cover that in another video, but for now, this is our level progression. Alright, so we're going to cover the early game progression. As I said earlier, we are going to be going full Hexblade Warlock up until level 5, and there's plenty of reason for that. The main reason is we want to get access to our feat and extra attack as soon as possible. Starting at level 1, we are taking Hexblade, we're taking Eldritch Blast, and Booming Blade. Booming Blade is our bread and butter. Basically, when we hit an enemy, they are going to be marked. If they move, they take thunder damage. And with polearms, especially with reach polearms, we're going to be able to hit enemies outside of their range and then walk away, so they have to move and take Booming Blade damage. We should be able to proc this fairly consistently. Of course, with Hexblade, we get Hex Weapons, so our weapon scales with Charisma. We get Hexblade's Curse for extra damage, crit chance, and healing. And we have Hex Warrior, which gives us access to shields, martial weapons, and medium armor. Very useful. Spells, we take shield for defense, hex for offense. Hex is going to really synergize with the build. It gives us a bonus 1d6 necrotic damage on hit. So once we get Polearm Master, we are able to get that bonus damage from Hex multiple times. And then this is our ability score layout: 8, 16, 14, 8, 10, and 17 charisma. I do highly recommend you go for the Hex here to get that +1, bump up your charisma to 18. This build needs Great Weapon Master, it needs Polearm Master, so you really don't have space for ASIs unless you want to skip Hexblade and just go the full Paladin at max level. But yeah, for now, we are sticking to this. Alright, so for second level, we are going to get access to Eldritch Invocations. We're going to take Protection from Good and Evil. Actually, no, you know what? We're going to take Armor of Agathis for some defense. And then for Eldritch Invocations, highly recommend Devil's Sight so you can cast Darkness and see in it. I also recommend Fiendish Vigor or Agonizing Blast. If you want a ranged option, Agonizing Blast is going to help out a hell of a lot, especially early on. Otherwise, you can take Fiendish Vigor if you're going to be in the front line. This gives you extra THP. You can cast it at will, so outside of fights, you're always going to be able to cast this and then have 7 THP before you get into a fight. Level 3, we get access to our Pack Boon and second level spells. We're going to be taking Darkness as our second level spell and Pact of the Blade, which is going to synergize with our Hex weapon. Level 4 is where the build comes online. It's not going to be quite as strong as it is once we get to Act 2, but it's going to be getting its identity as the Polearm Master because we get the Polearm Master feat. So this is going to give us a weaponized reaction. We can make an attack when an enemy comes into our range, and then we can also make a bonus action attack. So it is going to fully weaponize our reaction and our bonus action, giving us a potential for 3 attacks per round. Very powerful at level 4. That's actually really, really good. For our second level spell, we can take Misty Step or Hold Person. Those are what I'm going to recommend. They are the highest value. Mirror Image, Blur, also very good as well for survivability. And then for extra cantrip, we will take Blade Ward. Mage Hand or Minor Loot is also good. Now at level 5, if you have your Pact of the Blade, then you will get Deepened Pact. You will have extra attack at level 5 for your Pact weapon. And whatever weapon we're going to use, whatever polearm we pick, that is going to be our Pact weapon. Additionally, we get access to 3rd level spells. I recommend Hypnotic Pattern or Elemental Weapon are going to be great choices to take. And then we get another Eldritch Invocation. I recommend Mire the Mind to have access to the slow spell, which is very powerful. So that's our early game progression in a nutshell. Alright, so this time around, I'm going to go over itemization, but I actually have a build planner. I'm using EIP.GG's Baldur's Gate 3 build planner. We have the early game, late game, and mid game builds. If you guys want a quick reference tool, check out the build planners below. It's going to give you all of the itemizations, as well as the abilities, class, spells, yada yada yada, all the important details, so that if you're too lazy to watch the video, which I totally understand, you can refer to these. Now for the items in the early game, all of these are obtainable within Act 1 before you go to the Creche. They're really easy to get with the exclusion of the Scale Mail and the Disintegrating Nightwalkers. But let's go ahead and cover those items. We have the Haste Helm for mobility. We got the Deathstalker Mantle for invis. This can only be acquired by Dark Urge. We have the Helldusk Armor. Now this is an exploit. Morgana Evelyn has a video on how to get this very early into the game. If you don't want to do that, just take the Adamantine Scale Mail. We have the Gloves of Power to have an on-hit effect of Bane. We can Bane enemies before they even hit us if we get the opportunity to attack when they enter our range, and that's super helpful. It might make them miss. Our boots, those are going to become the Disintegrating Nightwalkers once we kill Nier. We have the Broodmother's Revenge and the Whispering Promise. These are 2 items that apply whenever you heal, and we're going to be healing from our Hexblade's Curse when we kill enemies. So this gives us a bonus 1d6 poison damage on our weapon, and this gives us Bless effect for 2 turns whenever we get healing. Could be Potion, could be Hexblade's Curse, doesn't really matter, but it's going to be proccing quite often because we're a Hexblade. And then we have the Caustic Band for an additional 2 damage on hit. We're using the Sorrow weapon, which is a 1d10 hit dice plus charisma modifier. And through our buffs as a Hexblade, at least up to level 5, if you take Magic Weapon, you'll get a little bit of bonus damage out of this weapon. And because we're making so many attacks, if we have Hexblade's Curse or the Hex spell on an enemy, we're actually outputting a very respectable amount of damage in the early game. So this is going to be the itemization setup. Pretty easy, pretty straightforward. Let's move on over to mid-game. All right, so let's talk about the mid-game options for our character. Now, as I said earlier, we're going to respec as soon as we hit level 6 so that we are a Hexadin, 5 levels of Paladin, 1 level of Hexblade Warlock. The reason for this, thematically or roleplay wise, would be because your character has gone through all of the events of Act 1 and maybe they've lost an ally. One of their close companions has died in battle due to the servants of the Absolute, and now they've sworn an oath of vengeance. Find out who is behind all of devious plans to turn people to mind flayers, to take over the world, whatever the heck this absolute person is. We want to find them and beat their face in. So that's kind of the lore-based reasons why we are respecking into Paladin. We are now taking on the Oath of Vengeance, which is going to give us access to the Inquisitor's Might, Lay on Hands, and Divine Sense. We would then be getting access to the Great Weapon Fighting Style at level 2. At level 3, we would have access to Vow of Enmity and Abjure Enemy, which are really powerful Channel Oath abilities that will frighten a single target or give us advantage on attack rolls. Single target. At level 4, of course, we're going to take Polearm Master. Level 5, we get extra attack, second level spells. Oath of Vengeance has a really good prepared list, so we have Hold Person and Misty Step that we'll always know as part of our subclass. Then at level 6, we go back into the Hexblade Warlock. We take everything that we took previously at level 1 for the Hexblade. And that's pretty much where we're going to be starting at in Act 2, unless we got more EXP from grinding it out and our higher level, which we'll cover the rest of the level progression in a second. But once you get to Act 2, once you get to the Last Light in, that's finally where this build gets its identity as a martial class that has battlefield control options. So again, the build planner link is going to be located in the description below if you need the full itemization, if you want a quick reference. But the main item that we care about, which we can get as soon as we get to the Last Light in, is the SNOWBURST ring. Now, whenever we deal code damage, which we're going to get from elemental weapon, we are going to create circles of ice around our targets when we strike them. So whenever you're proccing your opportunity attack, if you're dealing code damage, you're going to create the circle of ice that could cause an enemy to trip, flip, and fall prone, ending their turn immediately. And this is where we start to get really good crowd control against our enemies, specifically melee enemies that are going to be running around. Now, how do we get this item? We get it in the Last Light in, behind a loose plank in the bedroom. This is the Last Light in. We zoom inside and we go over to this bedroom over here. You're going to have to pass a perception check. Make sure to cast guidance on yourself before you go in here. And if you spot the loose plank, then we can open it up. And inside you will find the SNOWBURST ring. All right, so we've gotten the SNOWBURST ring, and now we need code damage from our main weapon to be able to proc this. That is where the DRAKETHROAT glaive comes in. Now, if we go over to the Moonrise Towers, we are going to be able to buy this item from Roa Moonglow. It is going to be about 1,000 gold. It can be a little bit pricey, but I promise you it's worth it. This is a +2 glaive. We could use this weapon outright by itself if we really wanted to. And it gives us access to the Draconic Elemental Weapon, which is the elemental weapon spell that is non-concentration. You do not have to concentrate on this. So you can have yourself or someone else cast this onto your weapon, and then you're going to be able to deal bonus 1d4 code damage on all of your attacks, which will always allow you to proc your SNOWBURST ring. It's that simple. That's the combination that you're going to need as soon as you hit Act 2, and you can get it as early as when you hit Act 2. Very early on, maybe around level 6 or 7, depending on how early you did go to Act 2. Now, going over the rest of the level progression for the build, it's very simple. At level 7, we are going to get Aura of Protection, where we can add our charisma modifier to our saving throws. That's a huge boost to our survivability, and it's what makes the Hexblade dip so worthwhile. At level 8, we get Relentless Avenger, allowing us to gain an additional 15 feet of movement on our next turn whenever we make an opportunity attack. And because we have Polearm Master, we are able to make that opportunity attack very frequently. So we're getting a huge boost to our movement speed. 4.5 meters is a heck of a lot to get pretty much for free without any other items. That's going to give us the potential to skirmish our enemies, to outmaneuver them very easily. And then at level 9, we are going to take a Great Weapon Master. This is a huge boost to our damage, and hopefully by this point we have enough bonuses to our attack that when we take the -5 penalty for the Great Weapon Master bonus damage, we are able to offset the penalty so that it doesn't hurt our accuracy too much. If you have less than a 50% chance, don't even bother with the Great Weapon Master attack. Make sure that you have some good modifiers on top of that so you're able to accurately hit your opponents. Hopefully you have advantage. That would help you out the most and get that bonus 10 damage on all of your attacks. And then at level 10 for Paladin, at level 10 we're going to have level 9 of Paladin, and that's going to give us access to 3rd level spells, which means 3rd level smites. It also means we get access to haste, since we're Oath of Vengeance Paladin. That's part of our prepared spell list. We have Elemental Weapon. If we didn't want to take the DRAKETHROAT Glaive. Alright, so very quickly going over the itemization for the build, we have the Helmet of Arcane Acuity, which is going to give us stacks of Arcane Acuity that increase our spell save DC for each stack that we have whenever we hit with a weapon. We're going to be able to stack this up very quickly thanks to Polearm Master, and even better yet, this actually works to increase the DC of your ice, the dex save that the enemies have to make to slip and fall prone against your ice. So this is actually synergizing very well with the Snowburst Ring, especially if you notice that enemies aren't falling prone. Slap this bad boy on, and I promise you they are going to fall prone. We can get our spell save DC, again, slipping on the ice, up to 20-25 if we have max stacks. Next up is Cloak of Protection. Very simple. This gives us AC and bonus to saves. Always take it. Then next up we have the Rippling Force Mail. So this works particularly well if you're going to go with the Skin Burster. This is a piece of armor that we can get from Damon's workshop, at least on the 2nd floor of his workshop, and it applies Force Conduit whenever we take physical damage. Now, Force Conduit is going to mitigate the damage that we take depending on how many stacks that we have, and this synergizes really well with our build to make us very tanky, because if we use the Skin Burster weapon, then every time we attack we get stacks of Force Conduit, so we're able to stack this up very quickly. Now for our gloves, we have the Dark Justiciar Gauntlets for bonus damage on hit, and again, because we make so many attacks, this is very helpful. We have the Disintegrating Nightwalkers. You're going to want to have some sort of boots that prevent you from being able to slip on ice. That way you don't hurt yourself inadvertently from creating a battlefield of ice circles. And we are going to be keeping the Broodmother's Revenge. At this point, if you want, you can switch to the Subjugation Amulet, but that's very situational. If you're able to crit on humanoids, the Subjugation Amulet is really huge for some boss fights. But in general, Broodmother's Revenge is going to give you more value. And then, of course, for our other ring, we're taking the Ring of Arcane Synergy. This is giving us bonus damage whenever we deal damage with a cantrip. And the bonus damage on our weapon attacks is going to be equal to our spellcasting modifier. So this is +4 damage on all our attacks after we Booming Blade. Our bow is still the same Bow of Awareness. That's pretty much going to be it for the middle game. I'll be showing footage on the side of how this build works and functions. But once you get the Snowburst Ring and code damage on your weapon, I mean, you're really going to start to go to town on knocking enemies down and out of the fight. And it's really just hilarious. It's very fun, and it's actually very practical too. This build can stand up on its own as a martial class that can take on hordes of enemies, especially melee enemies, because when they get up into your face, they just fall prone and waste their turns. So a lot of fun. Now let's cover the end game for the build. Alright, so let's go over the late game build for our Polearm Master. Now we are still going to have that same core of the Snowburst Ring, and then using DRAKETHROAT Glaive so that our weapon can apply code damage. Also using the Helmet of Arcane Acuity to buff up the DC. That way we can even make boss level characters fail the saving throw and fall prone and skip their turn entirely. It's super hilarious. It actually trivializes some of the late game fights, which is just amazing. Now, I didn't mention this earlier, but for our background, the race and the background we want to pick for ourselves, it doesn't matter at all. Entirely up to preference. I recommend Wood Elf for the extra movement speed. Again, we're kind of a skirmisher with the polearm, so having extra movement speed is very nice from the fleet of foot, but it's entirely optional. If you want to play a half orc for more damage, or if you want to play a tiefling for resistance, that also works very well. For our level progression, we are, of course, Paladin, 11 levels of Paladin in total, and then 1 level of Warlock. Now, from level 11, we get our 10th level in Paladin, which gives us access to Aura of Courage, immunity to writing condition. That's actually very helpful in some scenarios. And then we have level 12, Paladin level 11, giving us improved Divine Smite. Now, this is a bonus 1d8 radiant damage, which is actually quite substantial considering that we are able to make 4 attacks per round if we get our opportunity attack from enemies entering our range. That is going to be a big boost to damage, especially because of Hexblade giving us an increased crit range, meaning that we could potentially crit as well and double up on this damage. So that's going to be the level progression: 11 levels of Oath of Vengeance Paladin and a singular level of Hexblade Warlock, which really rounds out the build. That 1 level of Hexblade is 100% worth losing out on a feat or the ability score improvement, because it's giving you access to the Hexblade's curse, which is such a powerful tool, and it also lets us use charisma for any polearm of our choice. All right, so when it comes to the itemization for the build, you know, I said we're keeping the Helmet of Arcane Acuity as well as the SNOWBURST ring and the DRAKETHROAT glaive in the back pocket, but some of the other items we have are going to be a big boost to damage. So our weapon is going to be the Halberd of Vigilance. This is going to give us a +2 halberd that deals an additional 1d4 force damage. It also gives us advantage on perception checks, and when we make reaction attacks, we automatically get advantage with the weapon. It also gives us a nice little bonus to initiative as well. So this is a very, very useful tool, and we actually can get this from Moonrise Towers. It is sold by Lantarv on the main floor. So actually, this could be our weapon of choice over the Skin Burster in Act 2. I should definitely fucking I'm gonna go ahead and tweak that in the actual build itself. The Skin Burster I do like for giving us the Force Conduit, so that makes us really tanky, but Halberd of Vigilance is a no-brainer if we want the damage option. That's going to be our main weapon of choice. And then also a very powerful glove slot is going to be the Crater Flesh gloves. Now this is pretty difficult to get in Act 3 because you have to complete the Ball questline at the Murder Tribunal. It is sold by the Echo of Abazigil, and it is gonna be an item that gives us an additional 1d6 force damage on a critical hit, and it is probably one of the only, if not the only item in honor mode that can apply both a damage rider source and damage riders on top of it. So basically, when you land a critical hit, you can deal additional bonus damage from your weapon. You're going to get 1d6 extra damage from the Crater Flesh gloves, which gets doubled. And then if you smite on it, on top of that, you're going to deal another instance of force damage from the Crater Flesh gloves, because it is both a damage rider source and damage rider, which is pretty freaking crazy. These gloves are a huge damage boost to our character, especially if we can land critical hits. That's going to be the end game option here. Armor of Persistence is going to be our main chestplate armor. It's going to give us access to the Blade Ward effect for resistance to all physical damage, and it's going to give us resistance, which is going to increase our saving throws by 1d4. Both of these are really useful effects to have on our character. We don't care so much that our AC isn't super high. We do have options to use the shield spell to increase our AC by +5, so we are able to have some amount of tankiness, but a lot of the times we are benefiting more from just having resistance to damage and having the bonus to our saving throws to be able to pass against those really dangerous and deadly spells. As far as other upgrades go, or at least our other equipment, we are going to have the Face Semblance Amulet. This is going to give us advantage on all mental saving throws. Again, late game, we really want to pass the saves against spells. They can completely cripple you if you get paralyzed or if you get slowed or something worse than that. And for our boots, we're going to have access to the Hell Dust boots, which you can get from the House of Hope. These give you infernal evasion. You can basically auto pass a saving throw as a reaction. We have access to Hellcrawler, which lets us teleport and deal fire damage. And then of course we have Steadfast, which makes it so that we can ignore the effects of our ice and we don't slip on it. And then for our ring slots, we have the Snowburst ring, of course, as well as the Ring of Arcane Synergy, which we already covered. That is also staying around just because it gives us a pretty nice boost to damage. Now for our ranged weapon, it is going to be the Hellrider Longbow. This is going to give us a +3 bonus to initiative and advantage on perception checks, so we have an even bigger boost to our initiative rows. We are always going to be going first, which means we get to strike our enemies and start putting down the ice puddles wherever we want to position and to kind of slow down and hinder our foes. And that's pretty much going to be it for all of the items for this build. Act 2 is where you're getting the bulk of it. Act 3, we're just getting, you know, nice boost to damage and tankiness from some of the items that we have. But overall, our playstyle is not changing a single bit. Now, one of the late game upgrades you're going to want is the Statue of Yourself, which is going to be a statue that you can buy from the circus, from a little imp, a stone imp, or a mud mephit, and that's going to give you Bless pretty much persistently, which is very nice. And then also, of course, the Mirror of Loss. If you do the quest line and you sacrifice the Necromancy of Thay to get the Mirror of Loss bonuses, then we can increase our charisma by another +2 to cap it out at 20, which is very nice. But even with just 18 charisma, the build is plenty strong. That's going to be pretty much everything you guys need to know to use Polearm Master build. Try it out. It is a ton of fun. I'm showcasing lots of gameplay footage alongside, you know, the early game, mid game, and late game builds. So, I mean, the footage kind of stands for itself on how powerful this build can actually be. And even though it doesn't deal insane damage like the Shadowblade Hexblade or Shadowblade Bladesinger builds that can abuse or take advantage of the Resonance Stone to just deal double damage on top of being able to land a crit, and then maybe a staggering smite or something like that, just dealing insane damage. This build does deal consistent damage because we make a lot of attacks and our attacks deal chunky damage, but the main focus is on being able to subdue our enemies, specifically with the ice circles. Now, you're going to run into some enemies who are just straight up immune to prone, such as the Steel Watchers and things like that, but even if the enemy is immune to prone, a lot of the times there'll be other mobs that can be knocked prone, and so you'll be able to slow them down while focusing on the main threat of a target who might not be able to be knocked prone. But the majority of enemies that you're going to fight, even in Act 3, are not immune to prone, so this is extremely useful as a combo. And in the case where it's completely not valid, like maybe you're just fighting elementals, then you can pop on the Strange Conduit ring and get some bonus psychic damage while you're concentrating on a spell, such as Hex, such as Haste, such as whatever you want, really. So yeah, that's going to be it for the video. Hope you guys enjoyed. I had a hell of a lot of fun kind of figuring out and just making this Polearm Master build. I theory crafted a hell of a lot before I came to this final combination. I really think that, you know, being able to use your reaction to apply the Circle of Ice is super powerful. You could be doing this before patch 8, but now that we have Hexblade as well as the fixed bonus action attack, it's really, really worthwhile, and it all kind of forms together to make a solid damage dealing class that could smash face, absolutely brutalize your opponents, and I think you guys are going to enjoy it. If you made it to the end of the video, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. If you guys want to like, comment, or subscribe, that would be even more appreciated. If you have any recommendations for builds that I should try out, that I should maybe investigate and then make a build video on, by all means, I am all ears. You can DM me, or you can leave a comment with your recommendations. But yeah, that's going to be it. I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.